Hi, everyone. This is Stephanie from the Yale Alumni Association. It has been quite some time since we've been together on Yale Alumni Live here on Facebook and on YouTube, but I am very excited to kick off this academic year with an incredible guest who's about to join me in just a moment. We have some amazing things happening on campus this year. As you probably know, our students are back and they're in classes, and we're just so happy to have the school year underway. So joining me in just a second is a very special alumna who is going to tell us about not only her story, because that's what we love to share here on Yale Alumni Live, is individuals' personal Yale stories, but also about a really special event and occasion that is happening this year. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my friend Maura Grogan. Hi, Maura.
Hi, Stephanie. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for taking the time today to talk with me and to tell everybody about all the things that are happening this year. But as we always do on Yale Alumni Live, I love to just jump right in and start talking about you, Maura, and your Yale experience. So why don't we get started with a little bit about the journey that you took to come to Yale? Tell us a little bit about, growing up and why you chose Yale.
Okay, so I was in the class of 1978. Excuse me. So I matriculated in fall of 74, still one of the early years of women at Yale. And I remember walking around on campus the first week thinking, I can't believe they let me in. I'm so lucky. And anyway, so I was training as a figure skater in Lake Placid, New York, which is where I went to high school. And I was thinking about college, was bored in high school. I ended up skipping my senior year. And hang on one. Okay, my husband just disappeared from the background.
That's okay. We could barely see him with his rancher hat. No problem. Keep going.
We're in Montana right now, so he's pretending to be a rancher.
That's
anyway. Okay. So I was training in Lake Placid, going to high school, bored. I managed to have enough credits to skip my senior year of high school. So I was looking at colleges and thinking about all these colleges that some of the women in my family had gone to, and which would have been terrible choices for me. And my mom said, "Why aren't you applying to Harvard and Yale?" And I said, "Because they won't let me in." And she said, "No, they won't if you don't apply." So I did, and applied to Harvard, Yale, and University of Vermont, which was my safe school. Harvard said no, Yale said yes, and the rest is pretty obvious.
And certainly their loss, because we gained quite an alumna in you.
Thank you. Well, I'm really, really glad in retrospect that Yale said yes, and it was such a privilege, and it remains a privilege to be an alum. So anyway, I got to campus in the fall of 74. I had turned 17 2 weeks before I matriculated. So I was pretty immature, both academically and personally. And so my first year was pretty insane, between going wild, for the first time away from home and trying to figure out how to study and survive the academic rigors. But my first year, I didn't get great grades, but I figured it out and managed to be a acceptable student, and ended up with A's my senior year, and did well. First semester, not so hot.
I think many people can relate to that story. I myself was 17 when I was a freshman in college, so same words come out of my mouth when I share my experience. So I totally understand. But it all leveled off and everything worked out fine. What college, residential college?
I was in Saybrook.
Saybrook. I get a lot of Saybrook guests on Yale Alumni Live.
We're pretty awesome.
You are. So tell us really quick. I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but tell us really quick, maybe one of your favorite memories of Saybrook, or how Saybrook felt like home to you.
It was a great college from day one. We, as freshmen, were in Wright Hall on the old campus, and there weren't enough rooms for everybody. So we had 4 people in what should have been a 2-person dorm room, and we were all squished in one entryway, and we all got to know each other really well. So by the time sophomore year rolled around and we landed in Saybrook, I think it was a pretty tight group. And it was just a lovely college. My favorite memories probably are of the dining hall, which isn't surprising since we all spend a lot of time eating.
Yes. Yes, I love that. And clearly very good friends, because I know one of your roommates is watching right now, sending you all kinds of love.
Adrian, don't you dare tell any stories.
Well, maybe we'll have to talk about that for another time. I love that. So the bonds are tight in Saybrook. You came to Yale, you balanced out. And tell us a little bit about your athletic pursuits, because I know that you are quite the athlete, which is why I've got, Ingles behind me here. So tell us about your experience.
So I mentioned I was training as a figure skater, and one day, my freshman year of high school, my dad came and pulled me out of school in the middle of the day and said, "I just saw the coolest sport. We have to try this." And it turned out to be the luge. And the US Luge Team, it was right after the Sapporo Olympics in '72, was trying to recruit new athletes, and they were using the old bobsled run in Lake Placid, because Lake Placid had hosted the '32 Olympics. And so my dad drove me out to Mount Van Hovenberg, put me on a sled, and I became a luger. So I felt like I had a reasonable chance to make the US Olympic team in luge. I had zero chance in figure skating. And so I thought, okay, go for it. So when I got to Yale my freshman year, I was trying to figure out how to train for the luge, and went to Payne Whitney Gym, and just walked in one day to the training room, and this lovely man named Lou Morena was the trainer on that day. And he worked with me for my freshman and sophomore years to just do general physical conditioning and run the track around the pool and the whole bit. And so the Christmas of my freshman year, I came home to Lake Placid. I made the US team, but they made us retry out Christmas of my sophomore year, and that's when I made the Olympic team. So I ended up taking the second semester off from Yale my sophomore year and flew to Innsbruck, Austria to compete in the Winter Olympics in the luge.
I love how casually you say I made the USA Olympic team. It's a very impressive feat, Maura. That's amazing. So obviously it's amazing.
But we weren't exactly, going to break any records competing against the East Germans and the Europeans. So, we were a bunch of ragtag athletes on the US team, and tried hard, but, didn't exactly burn up the course.
Well, it's still impressive to me.
Thank you.
So you went to the Olympics and you did your best, and then you came back to Yale and you endeavored into a new sport. Tell us about that.
So I got back to Yale junior year, and I can't even remember who asked me, but the club ice hockey team was recruiting athletes, and they knew I could skate, and they were trying to find people who either played hockey in prep school, because that was pretty much the only place where girls played hockey then, ice hockey, could skate, or played field hockey. So they sort of had the gist of the game. So I said, sure, why not? It turned out to be the best sport ever. All the sports I'd done up to then were individual. It was me on the sled or me in the middle of the rink with the spotlight on. And it's so much more fun to be part of a team, and being part of the original ice hockey team was just a blast. I'm still very close friends with many of the women from those early years. And as it turned out, my senior year, we were granted varsity status. So we were on the very first women's varsity ice hockey team.
I love that. It's amazing. It's amazing. And trailblazers, because even now, girls in hockey, women in hockey, it's only now that there's a lot more teams for young girls playing the sport. It really has been male dominated for quite some time, but I love.
What changed it was really when women's hockey was admitted to the Olympics in 1996. I was playing recreational adult league hockey and was the only woman for a long time in the entire city of San Diego playing. And then the Olympics came and all these women started showing up, and it was so exciting. So we ended up having both co-ed and women's teams after that. But 96 is what changed the game for a lot of women for ice hockey. Of course, Title IX is what changed the game for all of us in sports.
Right. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute, but I would love for you to share any special memories or stories that you have from being granted varsity status. I mean, that's a big deal. Women are still new to Yale. Sports are still, athletics are still evolving at Yale. What was that like as a student? Do you remember, is it more important in retrospect or in the moment did you recognize?
I think in retrospect, I can't speak for everybody on the team, but to me, it was just, okay. So we're varsity athletes now. We get, slightly better ice times and, maybe better uniforms. It was, in the early days, we still had to fight for ice time and good locker rooms and all of that stuff. And so that was, a little bit of a shift. And we've got our first, coaches that were paid somewhat respectably. But, nowadays it's a much different game. But we were mostly just having fun and trying to learn the game and having a good time.
Yeah, I love that. And you and I talked when we were preparing for this episode today about the team this past year and how far they came. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about watching the women's ice hockey team this past academic year and how well they did. What was it like seeing them on a national stage?
It was so exciting. I watched their, final games and was screaming at the computer as I was watching. But just seeing the evolution of women's ice hockey, not only at Yale, but everywhere, the quality of the play is incredible. And the game is so much more beautiful in some ways because there's not all the fighting and the testosterone. There's still plenty of stuff that goes on. You cannot be a wallflower and play ice hockey, but it's to me, it's a beautiful game. And watching the Yale team do well and, just Mark's leadership, he's amazing and the team was amazing. It was really fun. I cannot wait to get back to campus this fall and get to meet the current ice hockey team.
I agree. I cannot wait to see hockey again at Yale, to be able to be there. So lots of fun things ahead. So in particular, you are spearheading something very important this year. You are the chair of the Yale Women's Athletic Network, which is a fairly new group that is working to support current athletes and bringing former athletes together. So talk to us a little bit about that and what's on the horizon for you guys.
Okay, let me talk first about the October event, and then I'll go back to kind of the larger, we call it YWAN for, it's kind of an ugly acronym, but it's Yale Women's Athletic Network. It works. Anyway, this fall is the 50th anniversary, not only of Title IX, which happened on June 23rd, but the first anniversary for the awarding of the first varsity letter to a women's team at Yale. And somebody's going to be mad at me. It was field hockey, tennis. I can't remember the third one. I'm so sorry, whoever you are. Anyway, so we are going to have a campus celebration October 14th to 16th. And we already have 233 registrants to the weekend event. And it's going to be full of lectures looking at the experience of female athletes at Yale over the decades, to what's next and how can we as Yale women help support 50 years in the future of women's college and professional sports. Our keynote address is going to be at a gala dinner on Saturday night, October 15th, with Abigail Disney and Missy Parks, talking about how being Yale athletes influenced their journeys. Abigail is, of course, part of the Disney family, and how her philanthropic work was influenced. And then Missy Parks is the founder of Title IX Sports, which was the first company to focus on women's sports apparel. And so it should be a really exciting weekend. We plan to have a lot of events. The president is hosting us at his house on Friday afternoon. We're going to get to see some field hockey and volleyball games. We can go visit with the teams. So Mark Bolding and the team, I'm coming to see you at practice. And so it should be really a lot of fun. And it'll be athletes from the very first women to current student athletes. Vicki Chun is inviting the current student athletes to join us at dinner on Saturday night. So it should be a real mix of women from the last 50 years.
I love that. And it's still, people can still register, right? They can still register to attend. It's still open, and people can find that on the athletics website, right?
Yep, on the Bulldogs website. And please try to register before September 9th because of supply chain issues and just, longer lead times, where you can still register after that. But we have some really nice swag that you'll get as a registrant, and we can't guarantee that you'll get all of it if you register after September 9th. So if you've been thinking about it, now's the time to do it.
Swag is a good incentive. So exactly. Good on you for mentioning that.
There's a gift card, and there's, going to be clothing and other stuff. So yes, try to get registered now if you can.
Awesome.
And it's only $125 for the whole weekend. So we're keeping it very affordable. And so hope to see a lot of athletes, families. We have husbands, kids coming too. It should be really fun.
That sounds great. That sounds awesome. Thank you for your work on that. So tell us a little bit about YWAN and how folks can either get involved, or what, some of the projects you're working on are. Just tell us more. Tell us more about that.
So YWAN came out of my volunteering, be careful what you volunteer for, but it's been so much fun. And I was at my 2018 reunion. I won't tell you which one. Well, you can figure that out. And Vicki Chun had been hired that year as Yale's first female athletic director. And at my reunion, so we were all excited about that. But then at my reunion, we heard about this 50-way 150 and women, 50 women at Yale 150. And I was seeing these buttons and I'm like, what's that? So it turned out to be the preparation for the 50th anniversary of coeducation and the 150th anniversary of master's and graduate programs. And I waylaid Whaley at my reunion and said, is anything happening around women's sports? Because we were the pioneers as well. And she said, we haven't really focused on that. And I said, well, can I do that? And she said, sure. So she gave me some names of people that she knew of that might have an interest in athletics. And I hosted our first meeting by telephone in June of 2018. And from there we have built, and it was sort of like, well, what do we want to do? And so today we have a core committee of about 25 women from all the way from, the earliest, I think, we have a couple people from the class of 73 all the way up to current students who have been very involved. And we have set ourselves a number of goals, not only this big weekend celebration, but we are planning to raise $5 million to support the Wiser Endowment. And the Wiser Endowment is an endowment started by some Yale women that supports all Yale women's sports. And so if you're thinking of giving, that's a good way to do it. And you can find information on the alumni page of the Yale Bulldogs website. So our goal is to raise $5 million to increase the Wiser Endowment, and then $2 million to endow the coaching positions for there are 3 of the 18 varsity women's sports that don't have endowed coaching positions yet: volleyball, gymnastics, and softball. And so we're planning to raise that money. So support from women for women. There's outreach and networking, research projects, the event. So it just kind of expanded into this big effort, and a lot of people got interested in what we were doing, and we've been reaching out pretty regularly to the list of 4,000 female athletes that we have on the database. It's been a great opportunity to work with the athletic administration. We're still sort of a volunteer informal group, and I'm hoping after this event that we'll look at ways to sustain this beyond the October weekend.
Amazing. You know, we would be nothing without volunteers. We are so volunteer driven at the YA, and you guys working with the athletic staff, we're so grateful to you for all that you're doing to move us forward. It's really exciting to know that all of these things are happening, and the celebration of women's varsity athletics. It's really, really wonderful time to reflect on the past and look to the future. And, you know, as a former athlete myself, you trailblazers really set the way. I didn't get to play hockey because, you know, it was not a thing here, but I'm enjoying it through my son, as you well know. Though as I told you, I'm always cheering for the girls' teams instead. So, you know, I really love what you're doing, Maura. We're really grateful to you. And, you know, I look forward to sharing the stories of women athletes at Yale throughout this year, which is something we're going to do on Yale Alumni Live, so that we can hear more about these trailblazers and the experiences of our current athletes. We love supporting them in their endeavors because we know just how much of an impact sports have on a person's life. So, final parting thoughts, Maura. What would you say, you know, looking back on your life and your career and your experience with sports, what role did being an athlete play in your life?
Well, of course, leadership, teamwork, you know, all the obvious things. I think the discipline of having to show up every day and train helped me well on the academic side, even though, you know, my high school education didn't prepare me well for Yale. My skating experience did, because I knew how to figure out how to buckle down and learn what I needed to learn and make it work. So, you know, to me, and, you know, I'm 65 years old. I'm still in pretty good shape. I still care about staying fit. So it's been a lifelong benefit. And Yale was certainly an important part of that.
Well, we're really excited to celebrate these milestones with you, and I'm excited to see you on campus. And we're just really grateful for everything that you've done. And thank you for spending some time with us today to tell us about the upcoming events and your personal Yale story. So, Maura, hats off to you, and good luck with the celebration. Anybody watching or catching this on the replay, make sure you check out the Yale Bulldogs website for more information about the celebration and about YWAN and how you can get involved too. So, that's all for today. Thank you so much, Maura, and best of luck in the next couple of weeks in your planning.
Thanks. And I look forward to seeing many of you on campus. Hi, Adrian.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.